Are you muted, Houston? Oh,
We were both, or I was at least. Let me try that again. Welcome everybody to another episode of our Puget Systems podcast live Q&A show. This week we have Ben Nelson, our tech support manager, joining us today. We got a few topics that we were going to cover from inside, and then some general topics to talk about as well from some of our social media followers. So that'll be pretty cool. I guess we'll just jump right into it, Ben.
sure.
As always, I do like to do kind of the background, like who you are, what you do, and stuff. And then I guess we'll just jump right into a few of the things that you had prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me again. This is now my third stream.
Mhm.
My name's Ben. I'm the technical support manager for Puget Systems. The first stream we did, we talked just kind of like an introductory um, kind of podcast and live stream about just like what is support, why is support different for Puget Systems, and that was great. And we captured like the experiences that we try to provide. The second stream we did was like a deep dive into a lot of our articles and the public facing content that we had, and that was a lot of fun. The time went by very fast on that one. So
Yeah.
today, kind of, I guess, combine the two a little bit. We'll talk about kind of trending issues that we're seeing in support, talk some Windows 11, and then talk about some like recent changes just within our company and like the
Yeah.
growth that we're seeing and how that affects support is what hoping to get through today. So
Right on. Yeah. So actually I think that'd be a good place to start. So how has support been both with the growth and then also like whatever sort of trending topics have you guys been seeing lately?
yeah, it's been pretty busy in general for tech support, and that's typically how it goes. There'll be spikes and there'll be lulls. With the announcement of Windows 11, a lot of people are very excited about that. That's generated quite a bit of inquiries and kind of confusion and questions in general.
Sure.
And then we've had a pretty big spike just from our company in demand, and so we've increased our
Cool.
output of systems in general over the past year or so. And so we're seeing more systems in the field, which will in turn, create more questions and tickets and issues with systems in general too. So
Sure.
we're seeing good growth all around, but we're hiring on a lot of new people, and so
Good.
getting to see the new faces and work with them has been a lot of fun so far too. So it's been a joy.
Yay! Oh, that's good. Before we go a little further, I'm curious what tends to be the, I guess, average turnaround from like I have a problem to my problem is solved.
Yeah, it's pretty varied. Our goal is to solve those requests within 7 business days as an average, but
Okay.
that includes everything from like the more complex, CPU replacement issues that take a
Sure.
while, for us to send a processor, replace that in the field or something along those lines, and then also just like a quick question that we can answer within 2 minutes, at the
Yeah.
same time. So it varies quite a bit, but our average, if you like include everything, including systems that come in for repair and stuff, we're seeing about like six days or so, 6 business days. So
Oh,
pretty good
nice.
turnaround time if you include everything. So
Nice. That's good.
yeah,
Yeah. And do you guys have a kind of a hard line as for a response time? Like if you get I know a call is going to be, oh, excuse my dog there. I know a call obviously will be probably handled almost immediately, but say like an email, do you guys have kind of a hard line to draw in response time for that?
yeah, that's 1 business hour for us as well. Regardless, we try to be right on the gun with those,
Mhm.
not leave you waiting. And also, too, our initial response isn't like, "Hey, we've received your request and we're looking into it." We often, when we do get huge spikes, we will, at least let you know that we've received the request and make some kind of, statement about that. But for the most part, we are good about actually giving you stuff to start with or what to check first or ask some initial questions that's actually going to get us closer to a resolution instead of just like, hey, we've received your ticket. So
Cool.
that's
Oh,
good.
that's good to hear. Because I see differing
Sure.
ways of handling those sorts of things when I
Yeah.
poke around on different forums and such.
At least for the experience that we want to provide, just kind of lost words or just an email to send an email. It doesn't really, if we're not pushing the ball forward to a resolution, it's kind of a waste of our time and like the customer's time if we're just sending kind of text and information that's not really helping anything. So we try to, really stick and provide something that's going to get the ball rolling. So
Yeah, nice, right on. So, with things, oh man, we've had all kinds of like driver updates and software things and stuff. What have you guys been tackling lately?
yeah, recently we've seen a number of machine check exception BSODs on a lot of like 3000 and 5000 series Ryzen CPUs.
Oh,
So if you're happening to listen in and or like watching this retroactively too, we're seeing a lot of just like crashes, and that'll happen when the system's idle most of the time. So just
that's weird.
when you step away and it appears more random. Like, well, a lot of these the initial requests that were coming out where we're running like CPU stress tests with the client in the field, and we're not able to reproduce. It just seems to be more, when the system's idle, or they've left it overnight, or they step away for lunch and come back and it's crashed with a blue screen. Um,
Weird.
and then another symptom to look out for on this specific issue is waylogger events will appear in the system or the event viewer. So
hmm And that's
um,
WHEA, right?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
way. So yeah, look, if you happen to have any kind of trends or your symptoms match that, the resolutions that we found have been BIOS updates for your motherboard. So there's been a lot of firmware related fixes, and then even as far as like CPU replacements on
Oh,
several of those tickets. So
okay. And any idea what it is that's actually causing it?
Um, not exactly. It doesn't seem to be like power limits or anything like that in the BIOS.
Hmm,
Honestly, just like CPU motherboard interaction, and it's hard to trace it exactly to what's causing it. But if there is a newer BIOS version and you're getting these same symptoms, we typically don't jump straight to a BIOS like flash as most fixes, but
Sure.
and in these scenarios we have been successful with flashing up if there's a newer
Hmm.
release. So
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good. At least it
yeah.
seems most of the time a pretty simple fix. That's nothing too harsh.
True. Yeah, and if the BIOS flash doesn't work, then it's a good idea to look at a CPU replacement. Hopefully, it's a new part that's still under warranty, and you can just get it swapped out quickly too. So
Okay. Cool.
yeah, the other kind of issues that we're seeing, still seeing a lot of the 30 series video cards, the beeping noise. So I don't know if you've experienced that yourself, Houston, but they have this speaker like on the video card directly, just similar to like a speaker on a motherboard that'll give you kind of error codes and debugging codes. And where we've had a trend too, where if the motherboard or the BIOS is set to like legacy and MBR,
Uh-huh.
then it'll trigger like a beep code from the video card saying, just saying like, hey, like I'm used to UEFI, can you switch me over to UEFI? And so it'll give like a 3 to 5 beep code, and that's caused a lot of like confusion because a lot of people think it's coming from the motherboard, and
Oh,
there's a
sure.
big issue. But even with the beeps, the system will still post, get into the OS, no problem, and it's just kind of like a warning tone can sometimes be annoying, but
Sure.
it's causing a decent amount of confusion too.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had my video card beep at me. Or at least I
So, yeah.
wasn't aware that it was a video card beeping.
And you
Oh,
probably have your BIOS and stuff set to UEFI, and like a lot of like newer systems, it was configured in the last couple of years. Like you're most likely it's going to be set to UEFI automatically, and so you won't hear the beep codes. But a lot of older systems that are upgrading
mm.
to a 30 series video cards, they'll likely get that beep code. So
Oh, okay. Cool.
yeah.
And again, pretty easy fix there, so it's nice.
Yeah, not too bad. If you do have, let's say, you're running like an MBR or legacy installed, like Windows 10 version,
Hmm.
there is ways to like actually convert that to a
Actually,
UEFI install
I think
without having to. What's up?
we have articles about that, don't we?
Yep, exactly. We have an article that converts from MBR to UEFI or MBR to GPT. And that'll let you like change your BIOS to only look for UEFI bootable devices and then not cause that beep code. So pretty handy.
Yeah, here we go. How to convert an MBR disk to GPT in Windows 10
Yep,
for your operating system disk. There we
very
go.
handy.
Cool.
And you also get, if it's you GPT and UEFI, you get the benefit of then enabling like security related functions, which
Hmm.
we'll get to a little bit in the Windows 11 conversation. But
Yeah.
yeah, the extra security benefits are huge, and so it's a sought after feature by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, so The other kind of issue that we're seeing come up quite a bit is it's specific actually to a model of video card, and that's our EVGA open air cards.
Oh,
Have you built with those before?
maybe in
Okay.
prior versions. I haven't played around with the 3000 stuff much.
Okay. Both the 20 series and the 30 series video cards, they're great cards. They're super
Mhm.
quiet. They're yeah, I mean, great performance in general, very reliable, low failure rate and stuff. But they have this little quirk to them where when the fans immediately start to spin up, they'll make like a little kind of grinding noise, and it sounds like really
Oh,
really quick. And that's only the time where it takes where they spin up.
mhm.
So if your workload happens to be where it's very kind of mild and it's triggering, enough heat and temperatures for the fans to spin up, and then it cools off, and then it spins up again and kind of repeats that back and forth a little bit. If you're at that sweet
Oh,
spot of the temperature, it can be pretty annoying. And so we've had quite a bit of customers kind of reach out about that. And it's not overly intuitive that it's the video card itself. It kind of sounds like a power supply or something too, like some kind of grinding noise or from a different fan as well. But it is from like EVGA video card models is where we've had it.
okay.
We've had it with 20 series cards and 30 series cards now, so
Oh,
something
dang.
to look out for.
Okay.
The open air cards too,
Yeah.
specifically.
And so do you guys then have to like I don't know, like mess with the fan curves or something on that so like it always will just hover at 10% or something along those
Yeah,
lines?
exactly. And we worked with NVIDIA earlier to get a vBIOS flash to flash those up, and so the default fan curve would automatically spin up at a very low margin, but at least it's not having the initial like start up and stop pattern. And so yeah, the vBIOS fix for it worked for a while, but we're seeing the pattern emerge again with a 30 series card. So hopefully we can get
Hmm.
another vBIOS flash on that as well.
Oh, okay.
Or you can manually use, like an OS video card application, like MSI Afterburner, EVGA Precision. There's several of those that you can use to tweak the fan curves and make it default. You can set it to really really low, like 10%, so it's always spinning and you don't have that initial grinding. So
Okay. Weird. I wonder if it's just like funny bearings or something. I wonder
yeah, I mean
what is doing that.
the it probably, I mean, the cards are very well designed. Again, the
Yeah.
reliability have been awesome. Once it's spinning, it's very quiet. It's probably one
Right.
of our quietest cards once the fans are spinning and under load. But yeah, that initial like little tweak, it's
Mm.
the grinding noise, and it's very evident. When we get videos coming in, it's like, oh, that's the fan spinning. So,
Wow.
but
Huh. I just have to say that is also a testament to the quiet nature of all of our systems. If you're noticing a tiny little zzz of a fan grind like that over anything else that's going on with the
that's true.
system, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. And I will say, most workloads and stuff, it'll have the video card constantly, pumping out and chugging.
Mm. Hmm.
It's really the sweet spot of when it's like, say, just a couple office applications or a couple web browsers, email clients open, and you have, like let's say two 4K monitors or something like that hooked up to the video card that's pulling a little bit of load on it and heating it up. And then it's cooling off and it's going quiet, and then it's heating up, and so it goes back and forth. So it is also, you won't notice it unless you're hitting that sweet spot of turning off and on for the most part. So
Okay. Okay. Oh, nice.
yeah, that's pretty much the main questions that we're seeing. Of course, a bunch on Windows 11 related
Right.
um, questions
That,
in general.
that's the
But
big topic of the month, it seems.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of yeah. Well, we can kind of close out with that. I don't know how carried away we'll get and to see
Sure.
what questions come up, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you mentioned some members on our social media platforms and stuff reaching out with a couple questions
Yeah,
or something curious.
kind of just general topics that I think would be good to just kind of have answer, and then so we can also share that out elsewhere. Just I guess we'll just start with kind of the easy one in my mind is what sort of advice would you have for just sort of general stability for your workstation? Like
Sure.
how do you avoid things like um well, like blue screens or application crashes and things like that, in a general sense? I know we could pinpoint why Premiere Pro crashes every time I do 4K and blah blah blah, but like in a general sense, what can an average user do to keep their system stable?
Yeah. Probably the biggest key would be just like controlling that environment for what you're bringing into it. So both software applications and kind of like what you're plugging into it. Just be like keen and um, just understanding of what you're bringing into the environment. So if you want just a workstation that's solely focused on a couple things, like Premiere Pro, After Effects, just be careful about what else you're bringing on the system. That could not potentially like not play well with them too if it's running in the background. So yeah, biggest thing is probably managing startup programs, like what you have running when the computer initially launches. Like it's totally acceptable and tons of people do it to have their games, all their Steam clients and everything like that installed on the same computer that they edit on, and that's totally a normal practice. I just would recommend changing the startup program so they don't launch automatically. So let's say your 10 gig update for a game isn't going to happen right in the middle as you're trying to edit. If you can control that to line up with a timeline that works for you, that's going to be big. And like knowing what you have installed on your system, it can be tricky a lot of the times. If you're downloading free applications, they'll bundle these other services and stuff with it too. And so take the time to just like stop right there, plug it into Google, ask a tech friend too if you're not sure yourself. Really know like what you're installing on your system, because that can come out of nowhere and run in the background and kind of give you some grief in general. So
Like McAfee or whatever getting
yeah,
installed when I put Adobe Reader.
yep, they'll bundle things
One
in.
little check mark you're not paying attention to, and you got all kind of weird. Not that that's like, I mean, it's antivirus order, but other softwares will do that sort of thing as well, and that can put some malicious things in the background there.
Yeah, it's a common one, even like audio related applications. And next thing you know, you don't have any like audio output because it's switched to this new program that you accidentally bundled in with a different download. So yeah. Um, Also, our general recommendation is to run only one antivirus program at a time.
Right.
Occasionally, and probably more often than not, they will kind of fight each other and butt heads. So if you're running like the Windows Defender and Security Suite along with Avast or something else like that, if they're trying to do the same checks, together, sometimes they can fight butt heads. Especially, it's more common with like two third party antiviruses. So if you get like Avast and McAfee, for example, like you were saying, or McAfee, if those are fighting with each other, that's going to slow down your system. And sometimes they'll try to, override and even delete each other. And that can cause quite a bit of grief. So,
Yeah. And I don't know about what our, well, actually, I do think I know our official stance, but I feel like generally you're pretty good with just Windows Defender, right?
correct. Yeah. If you're running the Windows Security Center and Defender, and all of that's up to date and you're keeping on top of it, and it's pretty hard. Like it'll give you good notifications and flag red and stuff if there are issues. Making sure that you have a firewall and everything enabled and running. If that's all up, then for the most part, yeah, you're totally fine. You don't need to get a third party application. You don't need to spend $30 a month, anything like that for antivirus anymore.
Oh, that's good.
Uh, I'll also say though, if you've been comfortable, using Avast or something like that in the past, and you haven't had any problems with it, and you prefer, the UI design and the updates that you get from it, it's no problem keeping it going. Like if everything's been stable and working well, and you prefer that application, there's also nothing wrong with it. So I don't want to bash any kind of third party, antivirus at the same time too. So
Right on, right on. We do
I'd
have
also,
go ahead.
If you want to do the questions, I can.
Yeah.
I can also come back to this one because
the one Julius is asking about GPU prices and stuff. We can't really comment too much on that. We don't, everybody's kind of in the same boat when it comes to GPU prices. Like, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it gets better. I'm a little bit out of my zone of expertise for sure, coming from technical support advice, but I do know a lot of activities that are happening overseas in China and stuff, like cracking down on cryptocurrency mining and having different like firmware implementations directly into the video cards and stuff changing will hopefully, make less of those cards go into the big mining, companies and get more into the general public and into other people's hands. So hopefully we see a turn for better pricing and availability on video cards, but it's so hard to predict.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then Tyler per year was asking about what to anticipate from the new Intel 12th gen this year. Worth waiting to see what they announce.
Good question. I actually don't know much on that yet. I always get my information a little bit as it trickles down, so I wait to get the information from our labs and our product qualification team. So I rely on them for that information. I haven't heard much on it yet, but yeah, I do wait for their kind of expertise and their advice before learning too much.
And a question from Twitch, Deddy, a gentleman I actually know in my personal life. He's curious about your background in terms of support, education, and certificates.
Yeah. So I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, and I've as well as a concentration in computer science. Like the majority of my classes were computer and tech related, a lot of programming, IT related courses, and I done a lot of like mobile support with phones. So I worked at Cricket Wireless. I worked at Target Mobile. I even did Target Electronics for a while. I wouldn't really count that as too like tech focused or anything. It was It was interesting. Black Fridays were always fun. But yeah, I've got my A+ CompTIA certification. That's a good just general background to know a lot and get a dip into printers and monitors and connections and protocols. It gives you a good kind of taste and background of that. And I've been with Puget Systems now for 4 years, so you learn a lot pretty quickly. Is just troubleshooting and diagnosing computers every day. You pick up quite a bit in that too.
Yeah. It sounds like more hands-on experience.
Yeah, definitely hands-on. I will say as far as like the tech part goes, it's generally the easier part to build up is like the tech knowledge. You can get certifications and do programs. It's a lot of the customer interaction, the relationship building, that type of stuff. That's probably a little harder to build up, in all honesty, but it's very important. So. Yeah, I've got a couple other suggestions too for maintaining a stable, trouble-free environment. I think that's a great question and something that I hope people are pretty proactive about in general. But besides controlling the software application, seeing what you have run on startup, only using one antivirus if you can. But unplugging any like peripheral devices that you're not actively using. So if you have, extra external USB drives, hanging around, and you normally keep them plugged in, but you only use them say once a month, go ahead and remove them. Your system's still sending power to them, still trying to interact with it, still available. And that can cause, some issues here and there. External drives too in general, during just like initial boot up of the system, sometimes your system will be like, oh, what's this? Can I boot to it? Is there an OS on here? And kind of like halt the system in that methodology too. So if you're not using the peripherals, like go ahead and unplug them, leave them aside. If it's not too much work, to plug them in when you do want to use it, and say you do a monthly system image or you create a monthly backup, just plug it in during that time would be our recommendation.
Especially that boot issue. In the past, that has caused me a great deal of anxiety. Like, why it'll just be black screen with just a blinking cursor, and it's like, why am I not booting? It was just fine. And you pull the USB. Usually, it's like a thumb drive that'll do it, and you pull the thumb drive out, and poof, it works just fine. And so
that'll do it. Yeah. And even if you have like all the BIOS settings set correctly, that it's set to detect the primary OS drive and stuff, it can still get confused. So just keep them unplugged. The next one, you could probably guess this, Houston, but I would say pausing Windows updates appropriately. So you don't want to like pause them indefinitely, especially if you're like a content creation user and you rely on like Premiere Pro and you're updating like Premiere Pro, constantly as part of your workflow. You'll probably need to get Windows updates, to a certain point as well. You could be missing like .NET and like framework files and services and stuff to be running in some of those Windows updates. So I would say like pause it appropriately. If you're in the middle of a project or something like that, it's okay to pause it until you finish the project, get your deliverable ready to go off to where it needs to go next, and then initialize those updates too, because there's been several tickets and requests come through after a bad update, hurting the system files and not able to boot the system after updates. So it's better to be safe than sorry. So you control when you're doing the Windows updates. Don't leave them off indefinitely, unless that is okay for your environment. And specific, if you're using like antiquated software or something like that you don't need to constantly update. Like it's okay to have an environment that's completely unplugged from the network, and all you do is your application, and you plug in the network only to send your deliverables and stuff like that too. So
yeah, right on.
And then control, kind of in the same vein, but control when if you do have automatic backup set up, control when those are happening. If you don't really want a backup happening in the middle of, while you're editing, and it's taking you, quite a bit of system resources and using an external drive and trying to communicate with that at the same time. So definitely still do your backups. Just set those times. If you're using a specific software or service, just set those times to where it's like away from your workflow.
Yeah.
So
smart.
Yeah, that's that'll get you a trouble-free operating system and environment. Well, hopefully, for the most part. I mean, you can only control as much as you can do. There are issues that come up. So again, having those backups, having those system images that you can revert to, a worst case scenario is always, important too. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's one people miss a lot. They until something bad happens, backing up your system and especially like important files and documents, things like that. That does seem to be something that it's like one of those things like you should do, but then it's like you just kind of like forget, or like, oh, I'll do it later or something like that. And really, like, just set it up to do it automatically, at 2 a.m. every Sunday or something, and then you don't have to think about it. It'll just do it. It's fine. It works, and you're safe.
You're worry free if you do get caught in a really unfortunate situation. We always recommend for the really critical, like, hey, my business relies on this type files or important project files, like having that data in 3 different places. So installed, and if you're currently working on a project, on the system itself, somewhere in your house or work office or workspace that's like removable. So if you have a server there that you can save it to, or an external drive or something like that. And then also like in the cloud or elsewhere, either on like a big data server or something elsewhere that's away from your house too, to protect from any kind of fires or catastrophic landslides or anything like that at your office or house too. But having the data in 3 separate locations will be best for the real critical information that you need.
Yeah. I kind of like this question because I feel like this is a good one. Julius on YouTube, he asks, can dust cause component damage other than heating issues? Like, can it damage an internal hard drive or SSD?
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of dust, and that depends too on like where your system is at and like what kind of environment it's in. Like you should see some of these systems and that we get in repair too. We can tell like where they're located or where they're coming from. Like if they're next to, say like salt deposits or something like that, like that dust is actually can cause quite a bit of damage to internal components. And it's more of like a white dust, almost like a very light gray or white type dust. And that's been known to like actually cause and like fry components because it still has some salt in it, and that's not going to be good on like, capacitors and resistors.
Sure.
So it depends a little bit on what type of dust and where your environment's at in general. It's always a good idea to elevate your system off the floor. Make sure you're dusting it out. Try to do it monthly if you can, but most people even every other month or at the very least once a quarter. Just get it completely dusted out, blow it all out from your system. It's always a good practice.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, and then the big topic of the day, Tyler would like us to talk about, what do y'all think of Windows 11's TPM requirement? And so, rather than directly answering that question as an opinion piece, because it's an opinion, let's just jump into the whole overall topic of Windows 11 and its requirements and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question in general, and it's, I will say, just to quickly answer Tyler's question, I would say um, it's good. I mean, it's more security at the very least. The where it does hurt some people is with like older hardware that don't have TPM 2.0 compatibility, either through their CPU firmware or like on their motherboard itself. So it's a little bit of unfortunate news for them if they have to get new hardware to use Windows 11. I could see the argument against that, but overall, like more security is typically better. Less risk of hacks of people booting malicious software on your system. So yeah, it's typically a good thing, I would say. But yeah, I mean, Windows 11 kind of came a little bit out of the blue.
Yeah.
It was one of the first days of my vacation when I like left for like the big announcement and stuff, and so I felt a little bit bad for my team having to field quite a bit of initial requests, but they were awesome. Even Chad in our department put together a quick like TPM related article right away to help advise on a lot of those requests that were coming through, which is great. But yeah, Microsoft had previously stated that Windows 10 is going to be a live service and it will live on for. I guess they didn't give a timeline, but they did make it sound at least like indefinitely for the most part in a lot of their talks and a lot of releases, and that they wouldn't have a successor. Would continue to get live service updates, but looks like things change with the leaks and what's been demoed and shown so far. But yeah, Windows 11, it's focused on a lot of security improvements, some good features for gaming, which is nice, more intuitive UI. One of my favorite features so far that's been leaked is you can, you dock your laptop, unplug the monitors to it, walk around, come back, plug back in your monitor, your laptop, and it'll remember kind of the orientation of where you had all those apps and stuff, which is going to be really nice.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big kind of complaint and gripe from a lot of people that need to kind of move their system around or kind of unplug different monitors for their workflow. So that feature I'm especially excited for. So
that'll be nice because I switch between. I have KVM and I go between my personal and work machine, and I have that issue all the time. All of my windows when I come back will try and go back to the main monitor, and then I have to drag everything back up to the other one and remix everything. So it'll be nice. That's just quality of life. It will be nice.
Yeah, it's surprising that's a pretty big request that we get in general. If you have like a Quadro card, you can actually set up specific like IDs or like display IDs and get it to recognize what monitors are plugged in where, and have the system even recognize monitors without them being plugged in. But a lot of people don't have Quadro cards, so it's a just nice quality of life for everybody, honestly. Yeah, I mean, getting more into Windows 11, we can break it down. We've released some new articles actually that just launched today that'll help go into some of the TPM requirements, some of the features and stuff like that. So I can go ahead and share my screen and talk through some of those.
Yeah, let's do that. There's a blower around right now, so I'm going to be kind of in and out muting.
Oh, like a leaf blower, or?
Yeah, I have new construction's happening right across the street from me, and I feel like, well, actually, my noise gate's catching a lot of it, so it's okay. But if I have to, I may just be like, just a lot of big facial features. All right, so here we go.
What's new?
We'll add this. Oh, hey, look, that's me. Cool. That's you and me.
We'll go ahead. I'll put away all my cheat sheet notes and expand this. Whoa. Oh, yes. Sorry.
There we go.
A dream within a dream. That was like some Inception stuff. Okay, yeah, well, quickly, I'll recap quickly. I was going to show the EVGA, kind of the fan bearings and stuff like that that we were talking about before, causing the noise. But these are the open air cards, and they're great fans, like high quality, great. They're like hard plastic, very quiet, but they just make a little like grinding noise as they're starting up. So interesting. Okay, well, we launched 2 articles today. This one is kind of a feature-related article from that Chad put together, and this one goes over just a lot of the exciting features to look out for. So,
yeah,
an introduction on what's happening with it. Oops,
Hmm?
getting a bunch
Oh,
of
I was just, I have posted links to the 2 newest articles in the chat.
nice. Um, yeah, get some eyes and attention on them. So yeah, this feature articles, it's pretty exciting. It gives kind of just a little taste of like what Windows is going to look like. A different taskbar, a change to the way tiles are being used. They haven't been the most popular thing since Windows 8, as Microsoft tried to make those part of more of their um, I don't know, as far as their initial kind of workflow within Windows, and they want you to like save all your applications to different tiles and launch them that way. Hasn't caught on to a bunch of people, so they're kind of redesigning that.
Okay.
Big push to the rounded corners. Seen some
Yeah.
interesting YouTube analyzing of that. Cortana's changed a little bit. She's now like a dedicated application instead of being kind of built into your search bar and a lot of like the
Nice.
start menu features. Big use of widgets, application support, things like native Android support is going to be really nice.
That'll be
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I think I personally haven't had any hands on with Windows 11. I haven't done the leaked version or anything like that, but so far, like the initial reviews that I've seen and heard about have been pretty promising and exciting.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting thinking that you're going to be on Windows 10 for a lot longer, and then get the news dropping that hey, here's Windows 11. It's going to be an update that you could update directly from Windows 10. Um, we have had issues on that in the past, like moving from like Windows 7 to 10,
Mhm.
even 7 to 8 and stuff. Microsoft will often carry over like a Windows.old file, and
Oh
with a
yeah.
lot of like old system files and data, and that's kind of been known to cause some issues for us in general. So we're going to definitely test and see how the update process works directly going from Windows 10 to Windows 11. But our recommendation in the past has actually been to do a clean installation and completely wipe that drive and install Windows 11 or Windows 10 when it came out, from scratch. So we'll see. Hopefully, it's completely stable and we don't run into issues just doing the update method, because I know a lot of people prefer that without having to delete all their data, back that up
Yeah.
for the installation in general. So
Oh, and and from what I have seen, it does seem like this isn't really a new. This isn't a new operating system. They haven't like, this isn't like a big kernel update or anything. I feel like this is more just kind of a name change to keep up with Apple, because Mac OS just had an update out of OS X to 11, and I feel like this kind of is more just for show almost.
yeah, I mean, there is quite a bit of like copying or emulating a lot of like Mac related updates and even features in general, rounded tiles and
Mhm.
all
The
of that.
centered taskbar.
Yeah. So definitely it could just be a marketing ploy to help capture a lot of the UI and aesthetics that's like Apple has been known for. But I mean, there is some significant changes, like the security changes, for example, and
Right.
the requirements for that. So it's probably somewhere in between, where it's not like a complete brand new operating system, but it's also not even, it's a lot more than just a major feature update, for example. Like
Sure.
there's a lot going on with Windows 11. So
Hmm. Okay.
yeah, overall, I mean, take your time, read through this. We'll be, of course, adding to this as we get some hands on with it. We'll be installing it, when we can on builds in house and doing some testing. I'm sure we'll do some performance testing too, and labs. There's supposed to be some different like power core functionality and some like promising features that might even help a lot of our content created applications and
Ooh.
engineering applications and stuff like that too. So we'll see. It could all just be talk and not really any numbers or any performance gains. But we'll be sure to validate it nonetheless.
Yeah.
So.
Right on.
This other article here,
Yeah.
it's one I put together. This one is will hopefully answer a lot of the questions that we've been seeing in support on, like, hey, how do I prepare for Windows 11? It's coming out. We've seen the teasers. We've seen a lot of information about it. Is my system supported for Windows 11? Do I have
Right.
TPM? Like how do I check? How do I prepare?
Hmm.
Um, and so a lot of this information could be subject to change, but there's been enough reporting and enough, at least concrete information for us to get an article together that should help educate, the majority of the people asking themselves those questions that I just kind of listed off. So
Yeah.
The first thing is like the hardware compatibility in general, like system requirements, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gig storage, and then DirectX 12 supported GPU. So most people will at least have those requirements, even systems 10 years old, dating all the way back there. So as far
Probably.
as like the initial system requirements for like all the other hardware, most people will have that. It's really the kind of CPU related hardware compatibility requirements that are going to cut a lot of people off, unfortunately.
Right.
So for Intel CPUs, you need an 8th gen or newer, and then AMD, you need like Ryzen, the 2000 series or newer CPUs. And
Okay.
then we
Okay.
don't get a whole lot of Qualcomm CPUs too, but it's the Snapdragon kind of 7Cs or newer than that too. So like the mobile
All right.
CPUs.
And I may be jumping ahead of what you're about to talk about. So are you going to need, as things stand now, are you going to need the little discrete little TPM chip? I've heard talk of some CPUs have like a built-in thing already, and that you just kind of have to turn it on. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. We can even jump ahead to that if you'd like.
Oh, that was part of this. Okay, I admit I hadn't scrubbed through this article ahead of time.
Oh, you're slacking.
I'm sorry.
Well,
It was
we'll
like it just came out this morning.
That's true. It did. Um, no, so what you're talking about is exactly right. A lot of people that have a recent computer within the last, couple years, even like 3 to 4 years, will most likely have like a TPM 2.0 requirement into their CPU, whether that's like Intel's version, which is called PTT, or AMD's version, which is like FTPM. And so you don't necessarily need a dedicated hardware TPM module on your
Okay.
motherboard if it's built into your CPU and your CPU is compatible. Then you can actually just enable it directly through the BIOS for the TPM requirements. So
Oh, cool. And how would I know?
yeah, it will depend a little bit. Like this article here, another one that it kind of links to. You'll be checking for, there's a list of what Intel processors have PTT, as well as like AMDs that have FTPM. But
Okay.
a general rule of thumb, yeah, is within the last like 3 to 4 years. Three would probably be safest to say. The last like 3 years will have firmware CPU related um, TPM access.
Okay.
So you can always check your specific processor. Well, one, if you're a Puget system owner, just reach out, ask us. We'll let you know right away. You can also just look at the specs of your processor directly, and it'll list like Intel's page or AMD's page whether it has TPM 2.0 requirements or not.
Okay.
Cool. Well, yeah. So hardware compatibility. Yeah. What the system requirements as far as the RAM storage and stuff aren't that intense, but it's really the processors that need to be updated. There's also a tool. Windows did have a tool themselves that they released, but there was quite a bit of bugs with it, and there's a decent amount of backlash on it, so they pulled it pretty quickly. But there's an awesome one called Why Not Win 11 that put together as kind of a project, and so you can download that and run that. It's worked out pretty well. A lot of people, it's very informative. Tells you exactly what you need to enable. If it's detected, information on how to run that. It's very simple. Just downloaded the latest stable release and run the application. It's very,
Cool.
very easy to do. So yeah, I mean, I guess dating back
Right.
a little bit and just looking at like, hey, how can I prepare my system for Windows 11? The first thing would be, checking hardware compatibility, making sure that it's ready to go. You can use this tool to help you. Why not Win 11?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next step is pretty important in kind of all major operating system changes, but that's just backing up sensitive data. I mean, we talked about this
Smart.
earlier, making sure that before doing any kind of major update or change that you just have this, have important critical documents, pictures, videos, project files, anything like that saved elsewhere. You just don't want to risk it if there were, an issue during the update process, especially if you're like a first adopter or trying to update right away. Just take the time, back up your information. Don't get yourself into trouble if you're like, oh shoot, where was that video file that I need to send to my boss in 2 weeks that I spent the last month working on. Don't be caught in that scenario. Yeah. Um, Yeah, next step is to check what we talked a little bit about earlier too was, is your disk MBR or GPT, and how to check that. And then, making sure that your system is in like UEFI and booting to like a UEFI device as part of like the OS. So this tells you
Mm-hmm.
how to check that, what partition style, your OS drive is. And then we have an article like we just talked about how to change it. So don't panic too much if you're like, oh no, I have a MBMR or a MBR drive. Don't worry about it. There is a way to change that with commands without having to fully reinstall your operating system. So
Nice.
very handy. And then what we talked about, enabling TPM, that's going to be kind of one of the next steps for you too. And it needs to be TPM 2.0. That is the requirement for Windows 11 that's come out so far.
Okay.
Again, all this information is subject to change, so it could,
Right.
they could increase compatibility. They could even decrease it. Just say, oh no, actually, just the last 2 years. I don't think they do the latter. I think if anything, they will make it more available for even older platforms. But
Yeah, I would think so.
uh, but yeah, there's a direct article here. This is one of the kind of initial articles that we released right away as soon as the information about Windows 11 came out, because a lot of people were wondering like, oh shoot, like I need a TPM. How am I going to be able to run Windows 11? And so yeah, this goes through like first thing is you don't have to have a dedicated TPM module for TPM 2.0. It's built into a lot of CPUs in the firmware itself. So double check that before you go. I mean, TPM modules in general are not that expensive, but availability can be a little tricky sometimes too. So, but if you can enable it just within your BIOS and firmware, like do that first, depending on your preference in general. But
Right on. Right on.
Secure boot is the next one. So another security related, requirement for Windows 11 to run, and that's a, a pretty big security requirement in general. Secure boot's been around for a long time, but it's just to help against like unwanted devices like booting on your system. So you couldn't have somebody just plug in some malware, drive into your system and launch it and kind of corrupt your system. The computer won't boot to it. It'll say, no, I'm looking for a specific Windows drive. I'm only going to boot to that. It'll be very particular in what it's detecting and booting to. So
Okay.
this article goes in. We have a very detailed article that explains a lot more about secure boot, um, how to enable it on your system, what to look for. And so yeah, this article too for more information is great, but at least there's a little tidbit in here about like what secure boot is and how to enable it just in the Windows 11 article. So
Okay. Yeah.
grab some screenshots from some of our popular motherboard lines too, just to show kind of what you need to do, disable CSM, and then find the secure boot setting and enable it and make sure it's good to go. So
Awesome. Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. A little, it might be a little confusing or scary if you've never done this sort of thing before, but it doesn't look like anything that really you're gonna screw up or destroy anything if you're trying to do this. Just follow along and you'll be good.
yeah, again, always do the backup, which is why that's said a little bit earlier in the article, just in case. But yeah, and of course, again, if you're a Puget System workstation owner and you're listening to this, just call into the support team or email in. We'd be happy to walk you through these settings if your system's not already set for it. All of our systems as of July have all of these BIOS settings already enabled, good to go out of the box. So if you do get a system from us from like now onward before the release of Windows 11, they will be ready, like Windows 11 ready, essentially, where you
Hmm.
won't have to change any BIOS settings. You can just get ready for the upgrade process in general. So
Cool.
this next section is also really important. Just like what if your Puget workstation is not supported with Windows 11? Well, don't panic. There's still going to be Windows 10 support through 2025, like October 2025 too. So that's several years. You don't
Yeah.
need to, if your system doesn't support TPM 2.0 or Secure Boot or anything like that, like eh, don't worry about it. You can still run on Windows 10. You can evaluate later, whether your budgets, if it's time to update like all your hardware in general for Windows 11, or if the performance gains that are coming out, as people are testing gaming between Windows 10 and 11, as those numbers
Mm,
start to come out, you can weigh that in your mind if like, oh, hey, it is time for me to update. As well as like content creation applications, engineering applications, and everything. If you see, publications from us saying like, hey, the performance gain, you get a lot more out of Windows 11. They're changing the way core interaction is with these applications. It's great. If you see information like that plays into your decision on getting new hardware, then sure. But when it first releases, no need to panic. Like, take your time updating. It's totally like on your calendar. So
yeah. Now, have they been really specific about what support? Like, is this EOL kind of no more security updates, no nothing after October? Have they been very specific about what sort of support is stopping? Because I know like they kind of slowly stopped Windows 7. And
yeah,
then
it'll probably be the same type of stoppage that they did with Windows 7, I'd assume. So they'll keep feature updates for maybe like a year more or so, or maybe 2 years or whatever. But then they'll stop security updates by October 2025. So that's
okay,
where, if you're not getting security updates, like you most likely don't want to be on that operating system. Like, you want to upgrade your hardware then and there.
yeah.
Um, so
So
it
that is the hard line in the sand, October 25
correct. Yeah.
EOL. Okay.
There is still like different companies and stuff that's all like third party that you can pay to create security patches for your
Mm.
system.
Hmm.
But that's typically, larger organizations and corporations and stuff will look into that. That's typically not for just general users. That's mostly for like big businesses that really rely on Windows 10 in this example. Because there's still people on Windows 7, but that do
Sure.
have security patches. They just have to pay separately for it. So.
Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's so you don't have to update if if you have the proper precautions set in place. But the biggest thing is, like, don't worry about being a first adopter. You can take your time with this update. Let the kinks get worked out, let the bugs get found, let like the improvements get published. Take your time on it. Make sure it's like good for your workflow. Like, wait for that weekend, say in like November or something, if you're really excited for Windows 11. But all your projects are submitted. You've got the weekend to transition over, get used to it, and then get your applications reinstalled and get going. So
Nice.
yeah, I mean, in the coming months, it's still only the middle of July or the beginning of July. So expect more information to come out, more testing to be done. Our support team will definitely keep up to date with any major changes or anything that's going to affect our workstation users. So we'll make sure that's public knowledge. We'll write articles if it's necessary. But we just want this transition to be like as smooth as it can be for everybody in general. So.
This might not be your wheelhouse, but do you know if labs will be doing like side by side comparisons?
I don't know yet. I was actually going to ask Matt that later, but
Okay.
I'd guess so. It seems worthwhile, at least from the information that I've got about like changes to core power utilization and stuff like that. It might be worthwhile at least seeing if there's anything into it, or if it's just kind of all talk and it's gaming only. If
Sure.
it's only affecting gaming app, like gaming performance, that's not really our target audience, so it's not something that
Yeah.
we'd spend time testing for.
Hmm.
But if it can help like After Effects, Premiere Pro, Pix4D, that type of stuff, then we'd
Yeah.
absolutely look into it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, especially combined with something like multi-frame rendering that's coming
Hmm.
from Adobe, and that on its own is making better use of high core count CPUs and things like that. And so, um, yeah, that'll be interesting to see what comes of that.
That could save a lot of people time. Yeah, if they're
Yeah.
able to improve their workflow speed, by
Right.
50% or more. So
Yeah. That actually that multi-frame rendering thing is I think going to be
pretty
big.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So right on. Let me see if we missed any questions before. Just opinion piece. Danny would like to know how do you like the visual aesthetics of Windows 11 UI overall?
Yeah, I mean, so far it's pretty crisp. I have a MacBook as well as a Windows PC, so I go back and forth, and so if they're closer together, it's a little bit, nicer in my opinion. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the rounded edges, definitely bring back that Mac vibe and how they do their Windows. So
Yeah.
I like it so far. I think it's a little entertaining, that Microsoft like slowly keeps copying a lot of like what Mac OS like aesthetics are looking like. So it's
It's
interesting,
in,
but it's for a reason.
it
So.
is interesting though because XP had a lot of it was a little more cartoony. They had like kind of, gradients and things on buttons and stuff, and it looked kind of their color scheme was a little, like I said, cartoony, but like they had rounded edges on all the windows and stuff too. And
It's
it's like a weird mix. Like we went from this real bleak kind of real all this flat UI UX stuff, all these kind of boring, honestly, buttons and things. And now it's like, are we going kind of back to a little bit more bubbly and cartoony, playful UI stuff, or what?
it's like fashion, right? The trends just rotate every like 20, 30 years. Like we'll see bell bottoms and stuff soon in the
Yeah,
next 10 years.
yeah.
Who knows?
I think I agree though. The few screenshots and things that I've seen of it, it looks good. I like it. The only thing that really kind of bugs me is the centering of the taskbar thing. But I know that's simple. Flip a switch and it's back to the left. Because I I like how Mac implements it because it's all right there, and then like it pops up that sort of like curve sort of deals
Mhm.
as you swoop through your apps and things. I haven't seen if they're planning on doing something like that with the Windows update, but yeah, that's that to me that's the biggest separation is how you
Yeah.
interact with the taskbar, and that's weird to me.
Might take a little bit to get used to.
Yeah,
I feel like most Windows users, I feel like when they first get to their system and stuff, their mouse is going to be in the bottom left just for out of habit, using the search bar, using that Windows start button
yeah,
in general. So maybe it'll take, a little bit to get used to, but uh, it's handy. It's right in the middle, especially if you're changing. Like you have a 4K monitor and the a lot of the icons are super small and stuff. If it's centered, it
sure.
might make it a little easier to click. So
Yeah, or ultra wide.
yeah,
I
or
just
ultra
thought of
wide.
that. Like that could make a big difference there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
And it'll probably help too when you're unplugging and plugging into monitors, like we talked about. One of the features of like remembering the orientation,
Mm,
maybe having that centered. If you have your monitor flipped in a vertical orientation or something like that, having it centered would be easier too. So
yeah. Well, it's cool. I don't know. I think I
mhm.
know a lot of people push against change, and every time Facebook does something different or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I like it the old way," and then 3 months later, everybody's fine.
Mm.
Um, oh, here's a great question. NPR 1999 on Twitch says, "Hey, Puget Systems just joined. So sorry if this has been spoken about, but has anyone tested Windows 11 and Spectre meltdown issues?"
Oh, good question. Um, I not that we've done yet. I haven't seen if there's anyone in the general public that's tested and like reported about it yet.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, most of the systems now, like at least the new systems that are being released, like they will have the latest BIOS like fixes already implemented, regardless of if the system's on a TPM or anything like that.
Yeah.
However, there could be a new occurrence of like an updated meltdown specter that comes back around again. But generally speaking, like the security advancements that are going to be like in requirements with Windows 11 are going to help with like new threats and new kind of system compromises and breaches in general. So
Nice. Right on. And I was gonna say, like, I thought after, I don't recall which model series was the big issue, but I thought everything after that had it built in.
yeah, now all the processors and motherboards are going to have that fix like implemented.
Yeah.
But I mean, there definitely could be another breach or another security flaw found in the future too.
Yeah.
So could be an updated
That
meltdown specter.
constant
So yeah,
constant leapfrog, right? Every fix, and then they
which
break it and they fix it and they break it.
Which Meltdown Inspector probably was a big like discussion point for why Windows 11 pushed so hard on new security requirements in order to install their operating system. Like they want to control as much as they can as far as like security and breaches and flaws. So it's probably for the best.
Yeah, yeah. I think it won't be unless it's something new, I don't think it will be a problem.
We haven't heard, or I haven't found too many studies or testing done on stability, but that's what I'm really hoping for is just like general, like crashing issues and how can you recover to your previous environment. Like I'd love to see like stability improvements in general with the new update. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers for.
Yeah. Well, we're just about to our hour. Is there anything else you'd like to mention or talk about or anything?
Yeah, I'll quickly just say, with all like the changes that are happening around our company, we're following a lot of like Washington State's mandates as far as like COVID responsibilities go, and we're able to now start rotating our staff and our office team back into our office, and so I'm really excited for that. Since we've grown so much in production, we've had to take over kind of more of like the old support area and stuff. So we're going to be looking at doing shared offices, but it's something I'm super excited to get more like face-to-face interaction with my team, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat too. So we'll be kind of back in the office soon and able to support each other and build relationships that way. It's going to be pretty fun. So
Yeah, man, it's gonna be weird. I think I've been in the office maybe 6 or 8
yeah.
times since I've had to come home, and yeah, it'll be interesting.
And live streams, we were talking a little bit, but hopefully live streams are going to be like in person, recorded together too. So
Yeah, that'll be nice. That'll be
yeah.
really cool. And also speaking of that, as we roll out, there will not be a stream next week. I'm off. I'm out, and also it gives an opportunity for us to roll over to our new schedule. We're moving to Wednesdays to better coincide with our in-office days, and just as a better scheduling for our guests and things like that. So yeah. If there's nothing else, Ben.
Well, thanks
No?
for
All
having
right.
me.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
taking the time out of the day. I know you're a busy guy being the support boss and all, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And also thank you to the audience for joining us today. I hope this was valuable and you guys got good info out of this, and we hope you guys feel a little better about things in the future. I normally say that this is done every Friday, but actually now we are now every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. So mark your calendars for that. We do both internal experts such as Ben and our labs guys and things like that to talk about just their areas of expertise and things like that, but also external experts and stuff, which surprise, you guys get to hear this first. Sarah Dici, July 21st. That is our first Wednesday episode. Sarah Dici is going to be joining us. She's a great YouTuber, tech reviewer, videographer, that sort of thing. That's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in, mark your calendars for that. Wednesdays going forward. Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific, right here. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you later. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, guys.